These are just 3 variations, but in the Yoga Sutras, we learn that there are 9 hindrances. They're also called the 9 obstacles. And they are the obstacles for us to awaken or to, evolve. And so things like overindulgence or vacillation or apathy or misperceiving how evolved we are and therefore disregarding or neglecting practices that could help us. These are various forms of the hindrances, and they're documented in the Yoga Sutras, which means, to me, it means thousands of years of human behavior. It's still happening. Okay, so welcome back for evening time. How was your supplemental meal, your supper? And they served you soup. So one of the cooks in the kitchen, Douglas, he has been here for a very long time. Directly after the fires, he came back, but then had to relocate, and then he's recently come back as of May or something. So he's been here for quite some time, and he is a student of yoga from Arizona, moved to Brighton Bush Hot Springs from there, and has always appreciated when the yoga retreats come. We're the best guests, he says. And so he was the dinner cook tonight. And I had told him that I wanted more Ayurvedic food over the weekend, and including that the evening meal is smaller, it's supplemental. It's something that's nourishing but not overwhelming. So is it your fault there wasn't any dessert then? No, I don't know why there wasn't a dessert. I don't know why they didn't serve dessert. Yeah.
I did look at them. They just had it kind of whatever.
Oh, I'll have to massage the board of directors on that one.
Yeah. I did look at the food description. There was no onions or garlic in the soup.
Oh, good. Good. Glad to hear that. Great. Thank you for checking it. Yeah, I was already underway there. I went back to my place and I brought a bunch of chard and kale and collards from my garden, so I'm cooking them on the other side. I also brought the orange squash from the garden, so I've been eating that over there with my little miniature crock pot that makes the khichdi. So we will discuss khichdi this evening, but first we're going to take a period of sitting quietly together. And I have a couple things that I've heard from some of you that I'd like to touch base on this evening. So we'll just start with a period of simply sitting together. You might remind yourself that we sit with consistency, duration, and depth. And so we've had some good duration since Thursday and consistency. We have the opportunity for dropping in. And hopefully each time that you take a seat, it actually gets more familiar. And the dropping in becomes easier. When you're establishing a practice of meditation, it helps to have a consistent way that you begin your seat. And sometimes, a consistent cushion or a space in your home or consistent direction that you face. And that consistency adds up to a kind of trustworthiness when you take your seat that you can drop in. Raise your hands to your heart. Thank you for joining together for this time. If you like, you can bow your head to your heart. Raise your hands and open your eyes. So in Ayurveda, we say there are 6 pillars of health. I'd like to talk about that a little bit. The 6 pillars of health. And I'd like us to keep it really simple in relationship to each one of these pillars. Because if we make it too complex, we're likely to not have good follow through. So you may just choose one pillar of health. On the first night that we came together, I was suggesting that we would meditate. And within a couple minutes, I said, by now you've already noticed if you concentrate well, or if you're sluggish, or what your mind factory is doing. So any endeavor that we undertake and we give our dedication to, we're in that endeavor, we are learning about ourselves. We are studying ourselves. We might be someone who makes a big commitment and then we kind of get deflated and we don't follow through, or we make a really big commitment to the exclusion of everything else in our life. And then people wonder if they're going to hear from us. We forget the larger scope of our life, or we don't know how to choose a commitment. So we never make one of those choices. We're vacillating a bit, trying to decide between which commitment to do, and we don't end up making that choice. These are just 3 variations, but in the Yoga Sutras, we learn that there are 9 hindrances. They're also called the 9 obstacles. And they are the obstacles for us to awaken or to, evolve. And so things like overindulgence, or vacillation, or apathy, or misperceiving how evolved we are, and therefore disregarding or neglecting practices that could help us. These are various forms of the hindrances, and they're documented in the Yoga Sutras, which means, to me, it means thousands of years of human behavior. It's still happening. It is still going on like this, that we have these patterns and habits. And when it comes to making a dedication for ourselves, sometimes we can complicate that and then not have good follow through. So first, if I had a magic wand, and I'll just imagine this is my magic wand. See if I can tap you guys on the Zoom room. I'm touching you now with my magic wand. It's not painful, it's red felt. If I had a magic wand, I would simplify everyone's life. That would be the first thing I would do. I would just give simplicity to every one of you. Simplifying, 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 simplifying. Because in that simplicity, it would feel spacious to make the one commitment you want to make, to increase your vitality or support your awakening. We wouldn't have so much static in the mind. But lives are complicated, and we live in a society that, as I was saying before, we have so many conveniences. There's so much available to us, so much structure that gives us immediacy of gratification that distorts our relationship to nature and also to each other, and shortens our qualities of patience and resilience. So it's kind of problematic the way it's gotten so developed that we don't have the resilience or the patience or the fortitude for some of the explorations that would be so helpful for us. Because so many conveniences are there, we are easily distracted away from the goals of yoga. Yogis way back in ancestor yogi times, life was quite a bit more difficult, and it was shorter, 35, 40 years old. So the sense of urgency to awaken in one's lifetime was greater. The sense of that commitment was increased. Life had a different pace and a different longevity factor. So if we could simplify our lives by granting ourselves some radical permission to simplify our lives, and then sorting out how to do that, we would have the spaciousness for the commitments that are like our vitality, service, awakening, those kinds of things. But for many of us, it's difficult to even consider simplifying our life because the permission inside is not there. many things will pull on us, like our obligations and responsibilities to other people, and financial vulnerability or housing vulnerability, or seeing to it that we're taking care of our family, our children, our parents, nephews, parents in my case, how to do it all. Right? Which points to another dilemma in our society, that we've been cultivated to live in more individual units, like in the nuclear family unit, and less in a village, less tribally. I know you spent some time in Bali and it got extended by the pandemic. Is it more communal living over there? Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I see that in India also when I'm there. And so that kind of segmentizing or compartmentalizing of the family unit also makes it hard to know how could we simplify. We're responsible more in a more solitary or compartmentalized way, responsible for the well-being of our aging parents and the growing up years of our little ones, and then adolescence and adulthood and so on. So it can seem kind of daunting to consider, well, how do I simplify my life? So the first place that we start is in simplifying the mind. And that means that we practice the cleansing of the mind. So the rubbish, sorry for the word, but it's coming from the teachings, the baggage, the residue that we're carrying, the ama, is less and less and less. If you've maybe during the pandemic, you had this joy where lots of people were doing this. They were cleaning their closets, cleaning the cupboards, cleaning out the drawer of all the twist ties you've had for 12 years that you don't need. And in the process of that kind of cleaning, people felt kind of refreshed. Was it the Marie Kondo method? So I didn't look at any videos, but I heard the name Marie Kondo. And that refreshing feeling that you've simplified the living space you're in is very similar to simplifying, cleansing the physical abode that you live in, this abode, which is carrying around a lot, undigested food, undigested thoughts, emotions, life experiences. Here, the hot springs and the sauna and being on the land, it would be natural if you're experiencing some unresolved emotions, grief, loneliness, apprehension, uncertainty, sorrow. Those are likely to come in the healing waters sometimes because you're being held by the mother, by the earth and the water. Sometimes you may you're walking along the path and like a sudden awareness comes, you get this jolt of insight. Oh, this has happened to many people here. Like, I have to quit my job. Oh my gosh, I'm in the wrong house. Or, like they have some sudden awareness of something and it came to them here because this is more spacious than the life we have at home with the distractions and pet hair. It's everywhere. It's all the time. I lie down to do yoga. I mean, don't clean that pet hair right now. No, just come, just hold still, stay on this mat. You look to the right under the sofa, there it is. You twist to the other side. Oh, it's under the bookshelf. It's everywhere. Oh. And they don't clean it themselves, so it's up to me. One more house chore for the fuzzies, always disseminating something off of their bodies like that. But in this way, it can be, here you are away from some of the things back home, and so insight can suddenly come to you. And I would recommend that you let that kind of simmer and shimmer. So let it live with you and let it have a little radiance around the insight. Don't have to impulsively act on an insight. There are times where it's not yet formed enough to be action, but also we don't want to deny or dismiss the insight. I would feel remiss if you had some insights and then you were driving back home, and as you get down the road, it's further and further, like you left it at Brighton Bush and you didn't get to act on it. So the residue that we're carrying around is the undigested food, thoughts, emotions, life experiences, and the unmanifest insights. We say in yoga that the unmanifest insight causes depression. because we have an insight and we don't give it space to manifest. We have an insight, it doesn't take action. We have an insight, it doesn't become formed. So again and again, if you imagine that you maybe had somebody who's enthusiastic who works for you, and every day they come to you and they say, oh, I've got another idea. So excited, and they share the idea. Wonderful. Okay, we'll get to that tomorrow. And then they come the next, oh, we got another idea. And they keep coming with these insights, but you never make them happen. And you are the chief operating officer up here. That intern is going to be pretty disappointed after a time and see like, oh, these don't get manifest. And they're going to stop bringing their ideas and maybe even get bored, lonesome. So in our inner psyche, when we have insights that don't take form, there's a part of our psyche that is registering that and getting really disappointed. So in the simplifying, as the insight can come through, we want a space for it to then be acted on. So as I offer some tidbits this evening based on Ayurveda and how we can manifest things in our lives, I would fully expect that there will be parts of your body and your life that have resistance. But let's also see what might land. Like what can land in your psyche, and perhaps it'll simmer with you for a time and you'll find yourself like naturally implementing it without resistance when you get home. And just one thing will be enough to implement, because you'll study yourself implementing that one thing. How does that sound? Like a working principle? Mm-hmm. So then in the 6 pillars of health, I'll try to use the right numbers of fingers. In the 6 pillars of health, the first 3 are the strongest, and they are called the 3 pillars of health in Ayurveda. 3. So that is energy management, digestion, and proper rest. So energy management is like how we are using our energy, our prana, on a daily basis. Proper digestion is the digesting, again, of food, thoughts, and emotions. And proper rest is like sleep hygiene is part of that category. So let's take energy management first. So to what and to whom do I share my energy? To what and to whom am I giving my energy away? So where is it being shared in a reciprocal manner? How am I managing my rajas, tamas, and sattva? These are the 3 gunas in yoga and Ayurveda. So for example, if I'm letting my energy be taken by things like social media or scrolling or gossip, or, there's newsworthy news, and then there's the other kinds of news that is just in the cycle to entertain us. And it's kind of draining, actually, if we get too hooked to it and involved in it. That takes your vitality, that takes your energy away. If we close the leaks in those hoses of vitality, we already have a lot more resource. I don't know how many of you water your own garden or put in your own watering system, but I've done that because I keep moving vegetables. So I want to check the watering is going in the right places for the right outcome. And in the heat wave, there were geysers coming from soaker hoses, which were cracking under the heat. But the heat was so hot that the soaker hoses were getting dry during the day, though they had soaked vegetables in the morning and they were going to do it again at night. It was so hot that they got dried and they cracked. So geysers. And you can see how expensive that is in a pretty short amount of time in terms of the water. And it's not devastating. We fixed it, we can afford it. But what I mean on your vitality, it's an expense. If you have a leak in your garden hose, something's taking your energy away, it's an expense. When we're younger, it seems easier to recover that. Energy management also includes, where do we get prana from? What are we taking in? So in the category of digestion, prana comes in through food. Prana also comes in through nature, and through inspiring art and teachings or music and friendships. So prana comes in these different forms, and it's there to nourish us, even in the cells of our body. Harmonious, empathetic relationships with inspiration and courage, that's boosting our health. They can study it down to the neurotransmitters and the hormones that happen from that. So we get prana to nourish us from things like nature, art, music, each other, and so on. And we don't want to then expense that precious life force unwisely. So we look at what is taking and what is bringing in, both of those things. With energy management, we can pick up one of the other of the 6 pillars. It's called service. So in energy management, I have experienced that being of service is always a return on my energy. At times it will feel like an expense as I'm driving. I don't drive anymore since my brain injury, but as I was driving to prisons over all those years, sometimes I was tired on my way to the facility. I've been going for 25 years, so it's a big commitment, and it's an easeful, apparently natural for me commitment. But sometimes I was tired in the car on the way to the prison, but always to be of service in that precious hour of timelessness and freedom for everyone who was in the classroom. I was always renewed. I never left tired or depleted. I never went out with less than I went in with. Never in all that time. There were times teaching a yoga class to the public at my own studio with beautiful saris and music and all the things and my dog. So there were times where those classes were exhausting. And it was a different environment. So there was a financial exchange. Sometimes there was expectation in the classroom, or this big fray in the lobby of people needing to talk about things that after class I didn't have answers for, or the staff and the cash register and all that stuff. And sometimes that was really exhausting for me. But just teaching the yoga class was renewing, and then going out into the lobby, whoa, it was very different, like going to the commerce part of the experience. So knowing what nourishes your energy, one of those recommendations in Ayurveda is service. It's also recommended in yoga. Whatever role that service can take for you. And sometimes, frankly, it is parenting good citizens. So don't think you have to add if you're parenting citizens right now. This is a huge service, and our culture hasn't done that in a really good village sort of way. So then you're looking for the places where that can happen to really nourish. A healthy citizen is a huge service to provide. So with energy management, we have to consider, where do we give our energy? Where is it being taken? And we also modify it with our life stages and with our dosha and the seasons of life. We have to modify it sometimes, going through a big life event like concussions or a period of grieving or moving. Maybe you move to a new place. It's a big event. So you have to modify how your energy gets used, just as you might in managing the energy of something like the fuel in your vehicle or the battery on your device. So energy management in Ayurveda and yoga, we say rajas, tamas, and sattva. Rajas is the active form of energy, best used for awakening and for keeping the mind clear. But we often succumb to rajasic tendencies like a Tasmanian devil. We're doing everything and we're learning to multitask, and then we're expected to multitask. And then in some settings, I'm so grateful for multitasking. Like if I go to the ER, I'm so glad they can multitask and figure out, whatever they're doing with all the equipment and the medicine that is needed. But in other settings, I strongly dislike being the recipient of multitasking. When my doctor is typing into the chart notes at the same time as trying to look at me, I don't feel like they're really with me. So there's ways in which our multitasking has become a benefit for some expediency, but mostly it's not helpful. So that's rajas. Rajasic is doing too many things at once, and often not purposely doing them, but reflexively doing them. Vertical rajas is where we've had some meditation perhaps, or we've gotten centered. And so we ask, like, how can I be of service today? Or what is really necessary today for me to do? With a concussion or I guess long COVID for David and a concussion for Kelly, and maybe some ADD or ADHD in the room and some other issues going on too. I can say for myself, there are days when I wake up in the morning and I have to decide, what are the 2 things I have to do today? What are those 2 things that are essential? because I won't be able to do any of it beyond that. Nothing else will be done. And I have to accept it, agree with my energy management, and then sometimes accept the consequences. When I call then the utility company because the credit card I changed to a different bank, oops, yes, I'm late. And often this has happened. I speak to them. I have a brain injury, this and that. I'm very sorry that I've missed it. Have you checked into our utility assistance program yet? Because you can have a discount of this. I hadn't thought of it. No. So when you get a human interaction, it also what I am unable to tend to on when I do get to it. If there's a human interaction, I'll make my way through it gracefully. But if I feel flustered to do it all on one day and I don't have the brain capacity to do it, I'm expensing the vitality of today and tomorrow and the next day. It'll have bigger consequences. So that's like a refinement you have to keep learning when you have a health condition. But it's recommended for all of us to learn that refinement just to live in this world. Some of us have more need to learn that refinement, but we all have the need to refine our energy like that. So one way that we can do energy management is by kind of extracting ourselves, pulling ourselves a bit more and more out of consumer culture mindset and living more in the indigenous reality of the body and life and its finite and fleeting nature, the preciousness of it. Consumer culture mindset is a big drain on our psyche in ways that we can't count it. We can't quantify it at all. It's so huge. So that's energy management there. I'll pause on that one and then go to digestion. You've heard enough about, I think, so far. But I would like to add a couple of tips on digestion. I just gave a massive suggestion there. Extract yourself from consumer culture. So good luck on that one tonight while you're sleeping. I mean, maybe it'll cogitate a little bit. But let me give a little tip about how to do that in case that landed as a little bit of an appeal. Where can you take your money back to a small bank, a credit union, for example? Where can you look for the places where you're really going local with the farms that you support? What can you consider about how you use the resources known as money and energy in a more macrobiotic way in your own life? And just see what difference that starts to make for you in this regard. Or do you need every purchase that comes to mind? Can you practice seeing purchases come up during meditation and letting them go by? Just letting it go by. You don't need each thing that looks appealing on social media. So watching your own behavior in that regard can be very helpful. Do we need every condiment in the refrigerator? Could you make your own salad dressing? Just some ideas to think about there. Because those are simple ones. And people say, oh, it's so simple, won't make a difference. The difference it makes is what happens in your mind in choosing something to act on. Maybe not buying the corporate salad dressing is not a big deal in your world, but extracting yourself from it and making a little salad dressing at home from other ingredients is changing how you think and relate to your world. And that's what becomes significant. Repeating that behavior with the mind, it goes to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So don't diminish something that you're trying on as too minuscule. It won't be. Digestion. Now, the two tidbits that I left out earlier and might land with some resistance right now, related to the question of yogurt and the question of khichdi. Okay. Yeah, hold on to your seats. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, oh, and hot yoga, I got to discuss that too. Yes. Okay. Energy management. Hot yoga is never recommended because when you're practicing hot yoga, you're likely in the sympathetic nervous system. You are likely sweating out essential nutrients, and the yin, according to Chinese medicine, your yin is being depleted. Even teachers who teach regularly in a hot yoga setting end up with depletion-based illnesses, as according to them coming to me talking about it and seeing them at the Ayurveda Center in India, like, oh my God, I gotta get my life back together. I teach yoga, The doctors are like, that's what's wrong with yoga. because what they have heard about Americans doing yoga is hot yoga. And there is no such thing as hot yoga in India. Never has been, and there never will be.
What about where it's hot?
They don't practice in the heat. They only practice in the coolness of the morning or perhaps in the coolness of the evening, but they don't practice hot. They don't practice. By the time it gets to a certain temperature, you're not in the sun at all. So hot yoga is ultimately depleting in that way. It makes you feel more bendy, and you can also end up going past your joints threshold, your flexibility threshold. And yoga isn't ultimately about the flexibility. It's really about the subtle body. So we don't want to be in a situation where we can't be mindful, thoughtful, use the pranayama to heat yourself from the inside and to focus your mind. Whereas in the hot yoga setting, often they're also playing music, and the teacher's calling out instructions that might not have any quality of mindfulness or yoga or depth in them. So I can't recommend it. Is that complete?
Yes.
Is anybody leaving now? You're good. You're leaving Brighton Bush now. Now, I was very young when I lived here and young as a student of yoga, and I did practice that yoga in the sauna. And I cannot recommend that to you. Yes, Kathleen.
So it's just kind of a niggly point, but when we do the sauna and when we do the tubs, we are perspiring, we are shedding
Yes.
stuff. But you're saying just don't do that 3 times a week, every week.
No, it's different to be doing yoga in a hot yoga environment where you're doing about 90 minutes, sometimes an hour. It's pretty hot in there, and you're expected to get through that entire time. It's like a workout mentality. And the sweating is seen as a good thing because you're cleansing. But past the initial sweating, you are depleting essential minerals and nutrients in your body. Here, when you're doing hot, sweating, cold plunge, you're a different effect on your whole system. And I don't recommend that you go for a 90-minute soak or even a 1-hour soak. It does become depleting. And of course, I always recommend the cold plunge. For me, it's hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, cold, cold. I really like the cold plunge, and I think it's been helpful to my pitta dosha and helpful to my brain recovery to have that cold. And I know I should not spend more time in the heat because I do have a primary constitution of pitta, so I don't need that extra heat.
What if you go into a hot tub and there's no cold? What can you do?
Well, there's a cold shower out. Are those not running right now?
I went out
No,
to
the
the-
meadow. We won't have a sauna.
Okay, so if you're in the meadow tubs, then come back to the sauna and go in the cold plunge there. And have a lot of fun walking nude between, pardon me, you guys who are, here on Zoom. Walk nude if you would just feel the air on your body, go from the meadow tubs to the sauna. Kathleen will help you. She will escort you if need be. And then
Drink the cold.
don't drink the cold water in the sauna. If you're going to drink cold water, drink it after in the appropriate dispensaries for the cold water. But then go in the cold. I prefer the tub myself over the shower. I feel attacked by the shower. I feel held by the cold water. And I look up at the sky when I'm in the cold plunge, and it's just so lovely. But I don't like the feeling of the cold shower. At home, I do take a cold shower because I have a rain shower, and it's somehow it's
you're saying
palatable.
about 10 minutes of that intense heat of the sauna, for instance.
10 minutes is enough, and then cold.
Okay. And how long in the cold?
Up to a minute, just resting in the cold. Sit still in there. It'll warm up the water right around your skin. When I first came,
that sensation like I was dreaming.
no, it's actually happening. Well, when I first came on Saturday, it was quite cold at Brighton Bush. It was icy, hoar frost, ice in the cool morning. I had to break the ice to get in the cold tub.
Finish slide.
Yeah, so that's what I did. I cracked the ice on the cold tub and I got into it.
I find it.
It was really nice. Remy likes it, you said.
Loves it.
Yeah.
You know, there's a guy named Bear or Breer who just has built a career out of, you should get a cold.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm recommending it.
My 20-year-old really likes him.
Mhm. That's good.
But I don't think he ever goes in any heat. He just exercises in cold.
He does some breathing and then goes in the cold. Yeah. So the issue with yogurt, it's funny that we're talking about cold because the issue with yogurt for pitta dosha, you might think of it as a cooling thing to eat. Like if you have spicy Indian curry and then you have the yogurt next to it, you feel like it's cooling off your mouth. And so you have this incredible spice and then you have this cooling. Well, let's say pitta dosha, it's not recommended that we eat pungent, spicy food if we have pitta dosha. It increases pitta. And it's not recommended that pitta dosha eats sour food, like sour pickle or sour yogurt. Yogurt is sour. And so you think, well, if I give up the yogurt, I have to give up the spicy food. Yes. Sorry, Davika. I know. Whenever we're at the Vajragram place, all the Indian citizens are there and they're complaining that the food isn't flavorful enough. It doesn't have enough spice in it. And the Americans are like, oh my God, the food is so good because we're being cooked for. So we come from different orientations. I'm so grateful to be cooked for. And then the Indians are complaining to the doctors that it's not spicy enough. And in fact, the food is quite bland during Ayurvedic cleansing because spice is moving energy in your body. And for pitta dosha, and even for vata dosha, when you have spicy food going up, your energy is going up. So pitta and vata are being exacerbated. Whereas kapha dosha can have some pungent food in the form of ginger. Some of those warming spices are helpful for kapha dosha. But pitta and vata don't need extra spicy food. Nor does pitta need sour food. And vata ought not be having cold food. So having yogurt in the fall and winter season is not recommended for these reasons. You could have yogurt in the summertime, and my Ayurvedic doctors would still not recommend that for me, not to have yogurt even in the summer, because of my pitta constitution, and I have a pitta health condition. So I'm not having yogurt right now. And I was making my own yogurt for years. I ate it every day in large quantities for probiotics. I even added probiotics to the yogurt. When I was making the yogurt, I added more probiotics and I fermented it for 36 hours. I had a lot of probiotics in that yogurt and I really enjoyed that. But I haven't eaten it since I got home from India in June. And my health is better not having it in my diet right now. So you have to run your experiments. I think we were saying about experimenting last night, like really, we might make several passes like a bird does. If a bird was carrying a scarf in its beak, we say Buddhism, and it keeps passing by the top of a mountain. Every time the bird passes the top of the mountain and the scarf touches the mountain, it has an influence. We might pass by certain pieces of wisdom multiple times before we actually implement it and realize, oh, yes, I'm not now eating yogurt. This had been said to me on more than one occasion. And I was like, they don't really know. It's the yogurt I'm making, I was justifying it. And these 10th, 11th generation doctors, how can they know this about my yogurt? Like a little bit too willful, the pitta, and I know what I'm doing, Yes.
I
Yeah.
need a new dosha.
Yeah. I gotta go to the dosha factory and get a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
Need a new dosha. Yeah. So that's why no yogurt. And then khichdi, there was a question about khichdi. So this is in the realm of digestion. It is considered an easily digestible food source. And when you need to give your digestion a break, which is going to give your mind a break and your body's going to get a break too, when you need a reprieve from too much stimulus, even the varieties of foods that you might be eating or the complexity of your foods, to simplify for your digestion to have a healing period, khichdi can be very, very helpful. So can kanji. Kanji is even more simple than khichdi. It's rice cooked with a larger amount of water and cooked for a long period of time to be very digestible. Because it's been cooked so much, the digestibility of it is easier, which is also why we don't eat raw food in the fall and winter, and we don't eat it much for Vata dosha when it's out of balance. Because you have to digest the food to get it to be digestible, you've got to chew it more than most people are chewing, and you have to digest it in the stomach in the heat of this digestion. And some of us don't have that digestive fire because it's being spent in the mind. The pitta is going up to the head. Therefore, not as much fire available for digesting the food. So raw food takes more digestive power. You have to heat it to cook it. In the summer, in the pitta season of the year, we eat raw food, not actually because it's that we have more fire to digest it, but the raw food cools us off. So I was first taught in Ayurveda that we eat raw food in the summer because we have more fire, we can easily digest it. This is probably true, but my doctors told me this in India, it cools you, it's helping to cool your body temperature to eat the raw food. Therefore, only in the summer season when it's seasonal and the food is fresh and ripe and filled with prana, you want to eat it that way. Does that make sense? Yes, David.
What is kitchen?
Okay, yes, khichdi. So back to khichdi. So congee is like overcooked rice. This morning they had congee with sea salt and turmeric, I think was the other thing in there. You could actually add saffron to congee as well. That's what I do. It's really helpful for the brain. And saffron is like a golden herb that helps so many functions in your body, and the brain is one of them. So you could put that in your congee. Turmeric is an anti-inflammatory, really valuable for your body, and a little bit of sea salt. So that's called congee. Saffron turmeric congee. Now I'm gonna go into marketing my product. Just kidding. With ghee. The golden saffron, the golden turmeric, the golden ghee. Triple golden congee. It's coming into my mind now. I'm gonna be up all night branding my new device, my new thing. Yes, then we can consume it. I can sell it to you. Yes. Yes. So khichdi is in its most simple form. It's a white basmati rice with split red lentils. And I'm saying simple because that's the easiest to digest. These red lentils are easy on digestion. And when you cook them together with certain spices, and that is created into this meal called khichdi, basically rice and lentils. And the way that I'm doing it, because some of you asked me, how do you get that into your daily life? Because I'm doing this pretty much 3 times a day. I use other forms of rice and other forms of lentils, so it's not a bland. Pot, set the crock pot, I turn it on, I walk away from it. Here at Bright Bush, I go to the sauna, I do the things. I go back, it's done cooking. I take it out of the crock pot, I simmer the spices on the stove in ghee, and I put those in the meal that I'm going to be eating. So now I have my ghee, my spices, and my sea salt. And that's, I'm eating, it's like a 1 bowl meal. If it's lunch, I've chopped some vegetables. I put the khichdi in the crock pot. It's cooking while I'm working or while I'm tending to chores. About a half an hour before it's done, I put the vegetables in. When that's done, I fry the spices. I pour it in. It's a 1 bowl meal again. Right, so it's a relatively simple way to eat for the time being. I had trouble leaving the stove on since my accidents. I've had trouble actually cooking and leaving it on and not realizing that I've left it on all night. So I am using this baby crock pot, and it's helping me to have fresh food. And when I simmer the spices, I know I'm not walking away from that. It's just frying ghee and spices. So it's also important for me to feel like it's manageable, and I'm not putting anybody in my house at risk with this.
You can put rice and lentils in the pot together.
Mhm.
Uncooked.
Yes, with the water. And I turn it up, and because it heats, it cooks it right there in the crock pot.
So is there a benefit to white versus brown rice?
Well, I'm using a white basmati rice for my breakfast khichdi. For the lunch khichdi, it's unpolished red rice. And for my dinner khichdi, it's short grain brown rice.
Oh.
So I do change it up. let me say that it's ideal in Ayurveda, you would actually cook your food on gas that has a blue light. But I can't be trusted with the gas stove right now, so I've made this modification. I mean, I want to be trustworthy, of course, but I've just done it too many times. And it's, for example, I would make chai in the morning in the water. I know how long it takes to make chai. I'm in Shavasana, burnt chai. I just smelled it. I forgot that it was on the stove. How many mornings have I forgotten that the chai is on the stove? So I'm not making chai right now until I can, and I even set a timer, but then I turn the timer off. I'm such a glorious little twist I'm doing right now. Oh, I forgot. Shoot, I turned that timer off. So somebody said, make sticky notes. Okay, well, they don't speak to me. Sticky note. So just look at what you can do. And yeah, do your best. Yeah. Yes.
Is there a, if thinking about this getting up early business? When do you break the fast?
Okay, yes. So she's asking when you get up early. She said, thinking about this getting up early business. This the rumor about waking up early, the hypothesis of thousands of years of research about it. But today's rumor about waking up early, when do you break the fast? So for me, I do awaken at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and I have a luxurious period of time for my yoga practice and meditation. And I am so grateful that I get these couple of hours to myself in the morning. It's so life-giving for me that I'm not intruded on during that time, and I feel filled up for the whole day. If I miss it, if I compromise it, I later regret that within a few hours. Not because I couldn't get by and be resilient and maybe tough something out, but because it's so essential to my sense of service and selfhood that I do it. I'm not having breakfast. I'm not breaking my fast until about 8 o'clock in the morning. I do have tea, and they do also serve tea at Vajragram, which I'm really grateful for because I love the tea ritual in the morning. So I have tea, but I'm not having a meal until about 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so in the realm of digestion, the second of the 3 pillars of Ayurveda, we're really looking at eat what is digestible to you. And you're finding out what's not digestible by having certain kinds of symptoms. If you have insomnia, if you have digestive issues, if you have skin issues, if you get headaches, if you have mood fluctuations, if your energy is fluctuating a lot, this could all be related to food choices and the food that you can or cannot right now digest. Now, the thing about that is, as John Diard says this really well, we don't have an increased number of food sensitivities in our society. We have a decreased ability to digest food. And we have an increased numbers of foods that aren't real foods. So people are getting food sensitivities because digestion is weaker and crops are not as wholesome, like the way that we store grain in this country compared to how they store grain in other countries. It changes the quality of the food. So if we look at the quality of the food and the digestive strength that we have, we can increase our digestive strength by doing the proper cleansing and then rejuvenating. And then we can increase digestibility of food by choosing better foods. But if we're having symptoms, that's a good thing to look into. It's damaging your energy management, probably hindering your really deep sleep, and may make it hard to feel like you're of service sometimes. Whereas generally when we want to be of service, it's from a place of generosity, not a place of burden or obligation. But not feeling well, the same service can feel like an obligation. And that doesn't feel great on your heart's values. So the third pillar of health in Ayurveda is sleep. So when do we go to sleep? When do we wake up? And we discussed that yesterday, so I won't review it at this time. So if we just take those 3, and you've heard enough suggestions and ideas in these days, and you've had some practices and so on, I think we come back to the question of, how do I simplify my life and my approach to prioritize tranquility of mind? This in yoga is called stitau, a stable tranquility of mind. Stitau. Sti means stable, And Tao is tranquil, Tao, stable tranquility. It's considered one of the primary goals of yoga. So how do we cultivate the life that can offer stable tranquility? For most people, it's not just a matter of applying some new techniques to their life. It also, we greatly benefit from feeling like we're a part of a community of people who are trying it on. We need a sense of sangha. We need to know that other people are trying to reorient their life. And like the North Star is Tao versus some other sort of North Star that we're being guided by. So having a sense that other people are interested, committed, making the effort, hitting into the difficulties, finding the potholes and speed bumps and the derails, and then coming back, knowing that they're also trying to keep themselves coming back to it is really important. So Sangha is one thing. The second thing is Svadhyaya. And Svadhyaya means self-study. So whatever approach we choose to take, whatever one thing we might be taking home with us, like waking up early, we study ourselves in relationship to that. We study our resistance, grouchiness, grumpiness, delight, pride, success. I did it 2 days in a row. Tomorrow I'll sleep in. Oh, our fluctuations, our erraticness. We study ourselves to see, there's the nature of my mind. It is showing itself to me all the time. So if I can look at that with Svadhyaya, means to have inquiry without judgment, then I can learn from it. And I can see that the subtle ways in which I am sort of, eroding my own best outcomes, the subtle ways that I'm eroding that. Like, it's so amazing. Somebody sent me a TikTok video that led to another TikTok video and another one. And now, God, the cats are so cute. The cats on TikTok. Like, somebody told me I should have a TikTok channel for my cats. And I was like, I can't even manifest. I did a couple TikTok videos before I was in my second accident. I can't get back to it. I can't even lift the brain cell to make a TikTok video. And I know people out there with significant medical challenges are doing those, but I can't do it right now. However, this little erosion that we get into for our best outcomes, I'll be darned if I don't sometimes just find myself with this little bit of free time. Oh, TikTok cat video. So of course there's room for entertainment and joy and pleasure, and there's room for that lightheartedness, and your brain does need some entertainment and some frivolity. It's a human need. We have the need for frivolity and playfulness. The question is, how long does it pull you in? What is it taking you away from? And can you ask yourself at that moment, let's say it's nighttime, is this going to help my sleep or hinder it? We come to this thing in yoga called tyaga, giving up the lesser desire for the greater desire. Which will be more helpful? More cat TikToks or a deep good night's sleep? Which one? So tyaga is giving up the lesser desire because we can see the greater desire it's more meaningful and it'll be more potent. So the desire for snooze or the desire for yoga. And as Jill Botley Taylor said at the end of her presentation at her TED Talk, she said, well, I could stand in this left brain, she was saying on stage, I could stand in this left brain and I could be all about me and my life and my narrative and where I'm going and these particular numbers of cells in my body. Or I can stand in this right brain and I can be the trillions of cells of the universe and feel immersed in all that is, in this expansive, mysterious wonder. And then she says to the audience, which one would you choose? And she's choosing the right brain in this particular lecture that she gives. And I think she has a second book that has come out and it's been recommended to me, but I can't read yet. I mean, I can't read a book. So I didn't remember the title. I can listen to books on Audible, and I think I'd find her to be inspiring because she had a major stroke and was for 10 years being cared for by her mother and trying to recover. Way more recovery than I'm needing. So I think it could be inspiring to hear what she has to say.
Does she have anything on YouTube either?
I don't know.
Okay.
Her She's on TikTok?
Ted.
TED Talk. I was about to spend my night. I'll be on TikTok, right? Yeah. Jill Boltley Taylor.
Scientist who had a left brain stroke.
Yeah.
That left her in her right brain.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's really quite a funny. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Jill Boltley, B-O-L.
I read her book was first came.
My Stroke of Insight.
Yes.
She has a second book. And I think it's more encompassing because she's further along in her recovery. But I use her as this example of Tiaga because which are you going to choose? It's so conditioned into us to want this individually oriented life that has certain, deliciousness and accomplishments. And we feel we finally gotten something figured out, except that we haven't. It's so fleeting. It's like they say, sand through your fingers. Or do you want this other thing that is more like the mystical experience of life? Now, when it comes to something like sleep, I'm asking, do we want to stay up late doing this activity, or do you want deep, nourishing sleep followed by morning meditation? Which is the greater desire, really? If you look back on your days, are you going to feel remiss that you didn't watch enough TikTok, or will you feel remiss that you didn't meditate when you could have? And just to say, since we're not right now, those of us here, we aren't apparently facing eviction or famine or migration directly at this time. We have time to meditate and to practice yoga and to make khichdi at home with food from our gardens. If you have the opportunity for a garden, if you don't, you have a CSA, you can support a local farmer or something. But I'm saying that a little sternly because the world is in great despair outside of the realm that we're living in currently, because if you were in that level of despair, you wouldn't be able to be here with me. So I'm making an assumption about how much despair you have in your life relative to the despair we're seeing. So we have enough privilege and information and connection to apply some tiaga, giving up the lesser desire for the greater desire. I really wanted the Jamaican soup tonight because it's nice to have variety. But I also ate some of the jackfruit yet, and it had garlic and onion in it, and that caused some trouble for me. So I did not go for the Jamaican soup, and I said to my friend, I think it has garlic and onion. I'm going to go back and make my greens. And I really enjoyed my dinner. And then she reported that there was no onions and garlic in the dinner. So Douglas had adhered to my request, but I didn't know he had adhered to it. So in the moment, I gave up the Jamaican soup, tiaga, for the greens from my garden on the other side of the river. And I don't regret it. It's whimsical to hear that they followed my request, but I'm not living with regret that I didn't get to taste the Jamaican soup. I'm going to survive. It was one meal. And the greater desire is for health and vitality, so I can be of service to you, not distracted by, let's say, brain fog or digestive challenges. So it's a moment-to-moment choice sometimes on tiaga, but we need sangha and svadhyaya to implement tiaga. Otherwise, we very easily go to the two lower brains, choosing the lesser desire all the time. That will accumulate into ama, the residue, and then we'll have to come back to Brightonbush. May 1st to the 3rd, by the way. Yeah, the first weekend in May, I'll be back here. But if you come without lots of damage between now and then, you start at a different level of your practice. So I'm not saying, we used to say this in yoga class, we go to detox so we can go retox. That's the attitude of society. We're going to detox so we can retox. And I'm asking you not to retox, but to stay with the detox. Okay, any last questions, observations? I'm going to go to the chat because I think. Yes, khichdi is today's dinner. Yes, thank you, Davika. Nude is natural, says Muna. Thank you, Muna. Yeah. Okay. Yes, any questions from Zoom or from the real? Yes, Karma.
What were number 5 and 6 of the 16?
Okay, great. So the 6 pillars of Ayurveda, energy management, digestion, deep rest or sleep, service, managing your emotions, and being in nature. And I think emotions can go with energy, and nature can go with energy and digestion. So you really sum them up into 3 pillars of health and Ayurveda. But Deepak Chopra made 6, and since he's famous, it's out there. So that's how you'll know what they are. I don't think that when you meet Ron Kumar, he might not say there's 6. He might say there's only 3. Yes.
I have one question about music. I've been listening to music during my yoga practice, not during meditation. During yoga practice. Do you
Yeah.
have a feeling about that?
Is it what kind of music?
Well, mostly it's kind of pleasant, soothing sort of music. Sometimes it's a variety of like the Gayatri mantra
Yeah.
performed by different people.
Yeah.
I have a little playlist of that, which I love.
I
But it's
listen.
not what you do. It's not that straight kind of simple chant. I mean, it's a little more, poppy and complex.
Yes, yes. So there are forms of music that you can listen to in practicing yoga that will keep you on your yoga mat. And it helps to act like a buffer between you and your thought factory. Right. And so there are different YouTube artists that I actually listen to. One is called Mahakata Meditations, and they have some really beautiful playlists. They also have a lot that looks sensationalized, like the Mortis with the skulls and the swords, and that's very traditional in India. So if you don't know what the gods and goddesses are, what those Mortis mean, don't look askance at it, but listen to the music. The music is really beautifully put together, and it has a certain vibration behind it, and it's very soothing. And then also Meditative Mind. They've been doing this channel for a long time, and it's all sacred music, and a lot of it is Indian music. It's mantras from India. So, and yes.
Way back when you started doing online stuff, you had the most wonderful meditation. I think it's meditative mind.
Meditative Mind. Yeah.
And I cannot find them. I can't find those tracks. They were like men with deep voices and singing, and just it was
Meditative
so
Mind.
powerful.
So if you want to just touch into Meditative Mind to get started, go to Meditative Mind YouTube and then type in Ganesha. And some of the tracks I was playing for you were Ganesha mantras, because it's about removing the obstacles. And I felt there was a lot of obstacles in society. There still are. But you can type that into their search bar on their channel, and you'll see some of those come up. Yeah. And then Mahakata meditation. Yes. I think listening to Vedic chanting during yoga practice would not be very interesting or helpful, but practicing Vedic chanting and listening to it in meditation actually can be helpful, because Vedic chanting is set to bring on the meditative state. So if I chant this for you, just a moment. I have to give them the right setting on Zoom. So if I say, let's say we're just singing the Gayatri mantra as an invocation. Om Bhurva Suvah Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. I'm singing that lyrically. That's not Vedic chanting, what I was just doing. If I'm going to sing it in more of the Vedic style, and I have to take specific lessons for this, because my ear has to be trained to hear my teacher, who is in Chennai. We're on Zoom once a week. I have to listen very carefully to hear what the difference is. So it goes like this. Om Bhurva Svaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona prachodayata. So I'm only a beginner. There's a specific rhythm, there's a cadence, and there is a sound. And I do much better when I'm chanting with her. It's very challenging for me, and it requires concentration, and it becomes meditative. So listening to Vedic chanting can really help your mind to come into a trance. Learning to do it is also, it develops something in you. And then simply learning to sing and enjoy the chanting is also wonderful. When you're practicing yoga, if you need that buffer between yourself and your thoughts, the music that you're choosing seems suitable. But if it's like, old replays of Michael Jackson and Aretha Franklin, it's probably not helpful. Yeah. Any other last questions for this evening? I'm checking on Zoom too. Okay, yes, go ahead.
If you could talk a little bit about how this lifestyle that we're learning about can be combined with, or maybe it's not recommended to be combined with, more vigorous forms of exercise.
Great question. Yes, you should have vigorous exercise. It's a part of your life. Our bodies need it. We have a very sedentary life. That's called a tamasic life. So remember, rajas, tamas, and sattva. And we have more tamasic lives in this convenient lifestyle that we have. It's more tamasic than active. And so it's really helpful to have some vigorous exercise, particularly if that helps you to move the energy that was getting trapped in you from, let's say, working at a desk, or like in your case, you're parenting little ones all day. You have to modify your energy, modify it, parenting them, promoting their well-being. And sometimes I would imagine that means that your needs aren't getting met in a particularly deep way. So getting some vigorous exercise with deep breathing and the proper hormones for that, we need at least 20 minutes of that, has been reported. High intensity exercise is a really cool science and will tell you how to benefit from intense exercise even more precisely than I can tell you. But we should clean the pipes. The exception will be if you're going for panchakarma, you will not exercise. You will be restrained from exercise. They will tell you at the panchakarma place. You can go for a little stroll, but you cannot go for a walk. You will have no jogging suit. That's what they wear. No jogging suits allowed. In India, I'm always endeared by the jogging suits that they're wearing while I'm doing yoga in the park. This is like in, not at the Ayurveda place, but I'm in the park doing my yoga in the morning, and then the locals are coming by in their Nike jogging suits and they're doing their exercises, the other kinds of exercise. And I think, oh, it's really ironic that they're doing what I think of as Nike jogging suit exercise and I'm doing yoga, and then they stop and watch me do yoga. I'm like a little tourist attraction at the park. Right next to the kids slides. Like when I went to Pondicherry, I practiced in this little park there for yoga, and for sure I was a tourist attraction. And you can hear them gathering around you. You're doing the yoga, you can hear that they're doing it, and you just keep practicing because it's better to do that than to start engaging socially. But vigorous exercise is helpful. Pitta has to take care and have exercise at the right time of day. And so if we're going to put exercise in the cycle of the day, the ideal time is during the morning period of kapha dosha. So that is, you've had your meditation because it's in the vata period of morning. And now you're in the period where kapha comes in. And having some vigorous exercise during that part of the day can be really helpful. Let's call that 8 a.m., something around there.
Before or after breakfast?
Before, yeah. So you're going to digest your food better, and definitely before coffee. That's what Andrew Huberman does. He's famous. So
Yes, he is.
he has,
job.
yeah, he's got like 2 or 3 hour long podcasts about these things. And at some level, he's nobody's best friend because he's making so many recommendations that you can't follow through on.
Yeah.
And he's telling you how bad alcohol is for you and how bad this is for you and what you can do about this. And it's amazing, really well researched evidence, and he delivers it in a very provocative, powerful, concise way, even though it takes hours to do it. And as somebody else said about him, he wants to give the best clear information, and he's not concerned about views. He'll just say what is true and real about these different patterns and behaviors in our life.
Yeah, what's it on?
Andrew Huberman. Lab or the Huberman Lab or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
Somebody recently said that because they watch Andrew Huberman, every time he suggests a supplement of any kind and he gives the dose, the guy's writing it down and he's just, I'm adding that supplement to my routine. He trusts Andrew Huberman so much. He's got a cabinet of
Mhm.
Huberman supplements. And he's just going on this guy's recommendation because he's so trustworthy.
Mhm.
So he was kind of teasing himself on some platform saying, I just have a supplement cabinet of Huberman supplements. So he's a scientist, he's a neuroscientist, and he's giving great scientific information, free and available to the public out of Stanford University, which is his professional job. And then he has his personal podcast. And he declares that very well at the beginning of each podcast. And he has so much energy, vitality, and clarity
And he drinks coffee after he exercises.
after the exercise. Yeah. But actually, he doesn't. Right. And I think that Andrew will say on his podcast, he doesn't drink either coffee or alcohol because they don't suit him very well, but he has researched both of them at people's requests. So he's not partaking of either one, nor am I, except for this little bit of that coffee I was describing earlier. My doctors had said to me, well, there's concussion, and so there's Ritalin, and there's Adderall, or there's a tiny bit of caffeine. And if that works for you to get some tasks done, which in fact it does, I have about 90 minutes of clarity and I can delegate to my staff and take care of a few things. And then I stop. I don't try to push it like Pitta would otherwise want to push. Let me get some more done. That was so satisfying. Let me get some, uh-oh. For the nerve.
I have the worst anxiety and I drink coffee all the time because I just push it. Like I'll stop, I'll drink decaf because I can't handle it. And then I'm like, hey,
Oh,
today, like, I'm terrible at it. I push everything in life.
oh,
Like I like to say, don't see if the door will open for you. Kick it open. Of course it'll open. Like just push.
well, that might be connected to your anxiety.
It
It might be making a loop between those two things.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm, yeah. You might have endogenous anxiety and like as your constitution and maybe your conditioning and society and all these things. It could be endogenous to you to have some form of anxiety. But then, Jessica, if we add coffee to that and we add a pitta attitude to that, then the pitta and the caffeine are moving the vata to greater states of anxiety. And then we might feel like we're going to be really productive if we can get a lot done based on the anxiety compelling us to do those things.
Yeah, might as
But
well
then
eat it.
the cycle will repeat itself until there is depletion. And I'm saying this like a law of Ayurveda, as in the law of gravity. We know that if we wear the body out in a certain way, it goes to depletion. And I'm saying that from the Charaka Samhita, which is the text about Ayurveda. It's not my wisdom, it's knowledge being passed down through us. So I would say come to Brighton Bush more often, and I'll see you in May and August and then December 2024. Sean will see to it.
Sure, it'll be December.
May, August, and December. Yeah. August 1st to the 4th, May 2nd to the 5th, December 12th to the 15th. I'm trying to lose my memory.
Okay, just a little question. I really like doing this.
Yeah,
Do I need to start doing that in the months?
no.
Okay.
So there, I'll answer this last question and then we'll take a break and go to bedtime routines. So in this weekend's retreat, I am specifically showing you how to use yoga according to the vayus and the doshas to elicit a deeply restorative outcome for your body and your health. And I am beholden to that as I'm trying to transmit yoga and Ayurveda to you. In your personal practice in the morning, if you take great joy in opening the day and doing this, and you don't have vata imbalances that you're navigating, if you're not exacerbating something about your well-being, by all means, It's important to love the celebration. Yes, live it fully. If we have a significant health crisis or a health condition, we want to do everything possible, starting with the most simple medicine. If we go to complex medicine first and we miss the simple ones, we may have missed something that could have worked. And then we're getting more and more complicated. So we take it down to the most simple medicine first in Ayurveda, and we address the health dilemma through lifestyle, rest, food, these things. And if none of that helped to regulate it, then we're asking the next complex question. But if you don't have a major health dilemma and you don't have your doshas going hither and thither, and you love this even in the winter, then yes, please do it. I do it in alignment with my body and my breath. That's my phone playing music. But I don't have any reason for it to be.
Yes. To the movie.
How did it just get turned on? It's
This happens to mine.
You were raising your arm.
well, this is a
Yeah, I was like.
this is a station I've been listening to. This I'm gonna give you guys a chance to hear this on Zoom. So this is a station I've been listening to on YouTube since October 7th. And it's called Buddha's Lounge. It's actually Sufi music. I don't know what music is played in Jerusalem or Palestine. I don't know what the cultural music is there. This is Sufi music on a station called Buddha's Lounge. And I just feel like it's often Sufi poetry is saying, we need to come back to the one. The prayer is in the unity of the one. Together we make things whole again. And so I've been listening to this station, and then it just turned on while I was with you. So called Buddha's Lounge. Okay, let me say thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your questions and your camaraderie and your courage in trying something on to improve your life, and then hopefully to be more vital and also of service.